The very first day of the new season is over, and the fastest driver on the first day is not Max Verstappen or Charles Leclerc or Sergio Perez. It is not even one of the top 3 teams from last year. The fastest driver was Fernando Alonso for Aston Martin. But what does this mean? Are Aston Martin and Fernando Alonso really in a position to fight for victory in Bahrain? Well, stick around and find out as we dive into what we found out from Friday in Bahrain. If you enjoyed the video, please hit the like button and subscribe for more F1 content. The vast majority of viewers are not currently subscribed to the channel, and if you're one of those, I would really appreciate if you just tapped that little subscribe button. Now let's get to the video. First off, how incredible was it to see F1 cars on track during the race weekend? That race weekend hype and feeling is finally back, but the question is, what did we actually learn from today? Well, that is what we're going to find out. We're not going to be talking much about or looking at FP1 because, well, that session is not really representative in any way, shape or form due to the conditions in FP1 versus what they will be qualifying and racing in. But instead of that, we are going to be looking a lot at FP2. But before we get into that, I just want to talk about Lance Stroll very quickly. Lance returned this weekend and it was definitely a bit premature in my opinion. He took part in FP1 and FP2, but in FP2 it was clear that he is struggling. You could visibly see that he could not turn the steering wheel like any other driver on the grid, and after the session he could not even get out of the car. This makes me a little bit worried. If he's struggling to get out of the car after a practice session, I don't feel too good about him actually being able to get out of the car after being involved in a racing incident. With that in mind, I really do hope that for today and tomorrow, Felipe Drugovich is given Lance Stroll's race seat. It is a matter of safety in my opinion. Now let's start with the bottom teams, and sadly that is Williams and Alpha Tauri. It does look like the fight for the wooden spoon is going to be between these two teams. Over one lap they are both quite a long way from the rest of the pack, at least by 2023 standards, and you know what? That's not actually that bad. The slowest time of the day was set by Logan Sargent in the Williams, but he was only 1.8 seconds off of the fastest lap. And actually, that's really impressive because in 2022, the gap from first to last in FP2 at Bahrain was 2.8 seconds. That tells me that the field is going to be a lot more competitive this year, which is incredible to see. And the fastest back marker is Alex Albon, and he is only 0.3 seconds away from the start of the midfield. This closer field is exciting for me because it means that in qualifying, one small mistake could cost a driver a lot of positions in a short space of time. And any mistake could see Alex Albon sneaking into Q2 and maybe, just maybe, into Q3. But what else did we notice? Well, the debutant drivers of Logan Sargent and Oscar Piastri were pretty convincingly beaten by their teammates. That was to be expected, sadly. Albon has proven himself to be a great driver since leaving the Red Bull family, and Lando Norris is one of the top drivers on the grid. He really did put Daniel Ricciardo in his place and knocked him out of F1. One driver who did have a fantastic day, who was making his return to the sport, was Nico Hülkenberg. The Hulk had a brilliant day, finishing P5 and only half a second off of first, which is perfect for Haas. This is exactly what the team needs, as they always strike best early in the season when they are at their most competitive. I have a feeling that Kevin Magnussen made a slight mistake, which is why he is all the way down in P16. I don't really think that Kevin Magnussen will be that far off of Hülkenberg, but again, it does show that one mistake in qualifying will absolutely destroy a midfield driver's weekend, which is great to see. That means though that Haas have a great opportunity to get both cars, I think, into Q3 this weekend, and they really need to strike whilst they can early on in the season. For McLaren, they had a mixed day. They were certainly better than where I had put them in my video talking about the new order in F1, which you can see in the video link in the description below. But yeah, McLaren had a mixed bag day. Oscar seemed to struggle a lot more than Lando Norris, and that was to be expected. When Ricciardo first joined McLaren in 2020, he really struggled at first due to the braking system that McLaren used, and funnily enough, it seems to always be McLaren that struggles with brakes in testing, so it could just be down to that. What will Saturday bring? Well, I think McLaren and Alpine could be in that very close and very tight midfield battle, which is going to be between McLaren, Alpine, Alfa Romeo, and Haas. Honestly, I have no idea who's going to come out on top between those teams right now. And those 4 teams are really going to be very, very close in qualifying. The gap between them is so tight, you just would not believe how close it was. One driver mistake is going to see them lose up to about 6 to 8 positions, which is insane, to be honest. Now, with that, let's get into the exciting part of the video and really what you're all here for. What is going on with the top 4 teams and who is where? Well, firstly, let's start with Mercedes. Sadly for Mercedes, it seems that right now they are behind the top 3 teams in the field, which, yes, you hear me right, they are behind the top 3 teams in the field, not the top 2 teams in the field. They do have a solid package, but right now they are struggling to keep up with the pace of the top 3 teams. Their tyre deg on longer runs was okay, but it was nothing too special, which is a bit of a surprise. Last year they had fantastic tyre wear, and in testing, I thought they had good tyre wear as well. But in practice, it didn't seem as strong as some of the other teams on long runs, which is a bit shocking to me. I have a feeling they have a little bit in their locker for FP3 and qualifying, but right now, I don't even think Mercedes will be on the front 2 rows of the grid. But that being said, I have been wrong before. So now let's get to the top 3 teams and what can we tell from what we saw in the data, which is provided by the Twitter account F1 Data Analysis, along with our own eyes. Well, the Alonso hype is real and the Aston Martin hype is real. Aston Martin right now is one of the fastest cars in the sport, and they have built a brilliant race car as well as a fast one. The Aston Martin is very strong on the brakes. They were the fastest car at every single stopping zone, which is going to be very important when it comes to the Grand Prix because, of course, to overtake, you need to be able to get the car stopped, and they can currently do that better than anyone else. Not only this, but Fernando Alonso was fastest in FP2, and I really do think that come qualifying, they're going to be fighting for pole position with the Red Bulls, and which might be a surprise to some of you, the Ferraris, because yes, Ferrari are still in the fight, despite the fact that in the fastest laps they were a little bit behind the Red Bull and the Aston Martins. But why is this? Well, it seems like it is likely that Ferrari still have a little bit more in their locker when it comes to power unit performance, because you can see this by the fact that Ferrari doesn't actually feature towards the end of the straights when it comes to who is fastest. That being said, through the fast corners, Ferrari are there. Through the fast corners of turn 12 and into turn 13, Ferrari were the fastest car. And these are the fastest corners on the circuit, so they have a strong car through fast corners, but still have more to give down the straight. This tells me they're going to be even closer to Aston Martin and Red Bull when it comes to one-lap performance on Saturday in qualifying. But what about the long runs? Because in pre-season testing, Ferrari had awful tyre degradation. Well, it seems that could have been down to the fact that in testing, Ferrari ran with less downforce, which meant that they had more sliding, and more sliding means more tyre wear. In their race runs during FP2, Ferrari were ahead of the Mercedes and close to the Red Bull and Aston Martin of Fernando Alonso. As for the Red Bull team, they have a great car, which was to be expected based on their testing performance. The car is very good on corner exits and at the early parts down the straight. This tells me that the Red Bull has brilliant mechanical grip, and we already know that aerodynamically it is a great car. On the long runs, the Red Bull did look strong, but thankfully it doesn't seem like they are as far ahead as we may have feared after testing, which means we have a great race on our hands. But that being said, Red Bull is currently lacking in one department, and that is on the brakes. As I mentioned before, Aston Martin and Alonso are the strongest on the brakes, but currently, Red Bull are the weakest of the top 3 teams on the brakes, and it seems like this is an area they will need to improve on. But overall, they have the strongest package. On the long runs, Red Bull, or at least Max Verstappen, has the least amount of performance drop-off, meaning that they have a strong car on the long runs and are very good at having good tyre wear. But for Sergio Perez, he did struggle a lot more with tyre wear versus his teammate Max Verstappen, which is a bit of a surprise given, of course, Sergio Perez is famously one of the best drivers on the grid when it comes to saving tyres. That means it's going to be very important at the start of the race for the likes of Aston Martin and Ferrari to get ahead of Max Verstappen. They need to get ahead of him at the start of the race in order to stop him. If they don't do that, then the race could be a little bit easier for Max Verstappen. So the real question is then, what have we learned from Friday? Well, the midfield is so close and so tight that any minor mistake could see a midfield driver losing up to 10 places on the grid. Mercedes have a lot of work to do to overcome their deficit to the top 3 teams. Ferrari have the most performance in terms of the power unit still left to give versus their rivals. Aston Martin, at least in Alonso's hands, are currently the strongest team on the brakes and also a brilliant car overall. And Red Bull seems to be the most rounded car. The question is then, who is going to be on the front 2 rows of the grid? In my opinion, it's going to be Sergio Perez in 4th place, Charles Leclerc in P3, Fernando Alonso in P2, with Max Verstappen on pole position. But what is Saturday actually going to bring? We're just going to have to wait and find out. I hope you enjoyed this video and this analysis, and if you did, as always, comment, leave a like, and subscribe for more F1 content. Thank you all so much for watching, and I can't wait to see who will win the first race of the year. Thanks for watching, guys.